Go live. And we are live. Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Hello.
Gosh, it's
Quite
a late
late.
one. It's a late one, isn't
It
it?
is. This is
It
probably the latest
really,
stream we've ever done.
it really is. But welcome along, everybody, to this Saudi Grand Prix live update watch along type. It's not really a watch along, but it's a react along and wait and give you news and updates to what's going on. This very strange and unique situation that's currently going on in Jeddah. So yeah, thought we would kind of go live, and of course joined by Katie as well, who has lots of the info. I'll let everybody kind of just flood in before we go through with the updates of what we know. But what we do know is that it's nearly 2 a.m. in Saudi Arabia, and they still haven't come to a decision, which is I mean, the fact that again, we won't go into too much detail just yet, but the fact that the drivers have been all at the track for such a long period of time would suggest that they're not very happy.
No, I think you're right there, Matt. I messaged Tommy. Obviously, there are a million things that are important with this decision that they've got to make, but got to remember as well that these guys are expected to be at the track tomorrow, what would be, the same day over in Jeddah, to be racing on what's considered one of the most dangerous circuits on the calendar. So you think they would want all the sleep that they could get, but obviously it just shows what a monumental and important decision is currently being made over in Saudi. And yeah, it's a very interesting evening. Obviously, been keeping up to date on socials. We've got our sister company, The Race. Scott Mitchell is one of their journalists. He's on the ground. He's been stood outside the room that they've all been having this meeting in since the beginning, giving us updates. So yeah, it's just the most unusual time, and it's very much giving Australia 2020 vibes, obviously for a completely different reason, but in the way that it's just waiting now for that announcement and seeing what the decision is that they come to. But yeah, it's a scary and worrying time.
It is, yeah. That what's gone on as well. Not only did it happen quite close to the track, but I think was it Max Verstappen mentioned that he could smell burning or something as he was going around the track. I think it was Max anyway, but there was at least someone that was he was going around and whatnot. But that these kind of things, it's just. I mean, how that does not raise safety concerns. I mean, obviously it has, but how there isn't like protocol for this, where it's like, well, clearly it is not safe for us to race in Saudi. And I'm fully of the opinion, if there is any doubts, any safety concerns, whether that be from F1 team principals, from drivers themselves, they should have the support and backing of their teams and Formula One themselves that this is everybody's safety. So it's a really difficult situation right now, but one of which we all hope, considering the situation, will be a wise and calculated approach to this all. Apparently, the team principals have just gone into race control after another half an hour with the drivers, while the drivers are still in the same room. That's from Chris Medland. That's tweeted that.
Well, while we've got plenty of people that are funneling in now, should we explain exactly what's happened? Because some people might be tuning in, seeing the name of the video and thinking, what on earth's going on?
Well, even me, like even this evening, I hadn't really been looking at social media for the last few hours, and then obviously you've put that message in the chat, and I didn't realise it was escalating as much as it has in terms of the talks within Formula One. So, Katie, if you can just give a little rundown and a summary for those that are joining. Thank you everybody for coming and joining. I hope you're all well and having a good evening or wherever you are. But yeah, Katie, take it away.
Very much so. Echoing Matt's things there. So Formula One racing in Saudi Arabia this weekend. It'll be the second time we've raced here. People maybe remember the race we had towards the end of last season. And during FP1, there were reports of smoke in the distance. A journalist, Claire Cottingham, tweeted a picture and said, I'm not sure what this is about, but we can see smoke in the distance. And after a lot of investigating. Obviously, speculation is quite a dangerous thing in these circumstances. It was confirmed that it was a military attack from Yemen's Houthi, I don't know how that's pronounced personally, but a rebel group. And the attack was on an Aramco oil refinery and was bombed roughly 6 miles from the track on Friday, which is where the thick, dark grey smoke appeared from.
It's around 10 kilometres, isn't it, for those that don't know miles?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I still work in old school miles, but yeah, about 10K. And yeah, it's been something that has obviously made everybody feel incredibly uncomfortable. And even though the F2 qualifying went on as normal after FP1, and we also had FP2 happen as well, but there's been constant discussions with the FIA, with the Saudi Motorsport agency kind of thing they've got over there with all the drivers. And yeah, there have been a series of updates from different sides of how things work, I guess. So one of the first things we heard was from F1 that said that the race will go ahead as planned, regardless of what happened in FP1. So despite the military attack, the missile attack nearby, the Grand Prix will go ahead. Then a statement from F1 said, F1 has been in close contact with the relevant authorities following the situation that took place today. The authorities have confirmed that the event can continue as planned, and we will remain in close contact with them and all of the teams to closely monitor the situation. All throughout this, F1 is stressing that the circuit is most likely to be the safest place they can be, that, you know, there's plenty of security in place for everyone involved. But naturally, it's quite a distressing concept, and there's, you know, worry, which is understandable. And then there was another meeting in which team principals unanimously agreed to continue racing this weekend. So that was another update. And then the one that's got everybody talking is the drivers. All 20 drivers have been meeting in a room to discuss their views on it all. Obviously, we can't be in the room with them. We don't know the conversations that they're having, but we can just maybe assume that they're conversations about whether they feel comfortable racing this weekend or not. Perhaps it's a case of, you know, 10 drivers are for racing here, 10 drivers are against it, and they've got to come to a bit more of a united, unanimous decision. But yes, they have been in that meeting for probably close to 3 hours now. And one update that's happened within sort of the last half hour, 45 minutes, which I found quite interesting, is team principals have now been brought back in to the meeting with the drivers to have this conversation. Some team principals were understood to have actually left the circuit, and it appears that they've maybe gone back to their hotel rooms and then been forced to come back for these conversations that are going on. But yeah, it's got to the point. Dominicali was in there, Stefano Dominicali, he's Formula One CEO. He was in the meeting with the drivers. Ross Brawn, another managing director for Formula One. So lots of people within Formula One and the FIA, and people with a lot of authority, all being part of these constant conversations. But yeah, as we've mentioned, it's now, well, they're 3 hours ahead, so it's now 2 a.m. in Jeddah, and we're meant to be, you know, getting ready for FP3 in a few hours' time. So that's the current situation, sort of round up very briefly, but there we are.
Cool.
That's my update.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. From my gathering is obviously one, this has gone on for a lot longer than I think Formula One anticipated, the teams anticipated, and it does seem, and obviously this is, you know, speculation to a degree, because as you say, we don't know what they're saying, but it does seem like the drivers are the ones that are taking a stand here, if anything, you know, because we had the news before that it was unanimously agreed by the team bosses that the F1 race would go ahead. Obviously, things have now changed. Otherwise, they wouldn't still be talking, and especially for the drivers to stay for that long. We don't see that. You don't see it for stewards' decisions, let alone staying just, you know, for this situation. So, I feel as though there's going to have to be a cut-off point. They can't be talking throughout the night all the way till the start of what's supposedly going to be FP3. But I suppose it is a different situation where their safety, that everyone's safety is at risk. So it's not like they can sleep on it and work it out in the morning, because the whole reason that they're there is because having these meetings is because they don't feel safe. For me, there is only one key answer to all of this, but how long it's going to take, what the sort of agreements that have to happen in order for this to be cancelled or be postponed or whatever. So yeah, it is an absolutely bizarre situation for many reasons, and the fact that the drivers have clearly taken a stand is something that we've never seen really before. Not in my lifetime anyway.
No, there've been incidents in the past. 1982 South African Grand Prix comes to mind. That was an example where lots of the drivers boycotted that, and that was over a new super license condition that would tie drivers to a team. And Niki Lauda, he played an instrumental part in that. But yeah, it's a very unusual set of circumstances. And like you say, it's not something that's not happened in the last few years. It's something that, we haven't really seen in a generation, really, of this extent, of drivers clearly very divided about the conditions that they're racing in. And it begs the question that it's not just going to be, if they decide to boycott this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, obviously Saudi Arabia have a long-term contract. So you've then got to think past 2022, what will happen with the contract then? Because that's a whole nother side of it. F1 is essentially a business. And if F1 say we're pulling out, then they're going to lose a lot of money. And I know money seems like a really irrelevant thing in all of this. Obviously, the human side to it is much more important than pieces of paper in the bank account. But yeah, it's more of, if we say no to Saudi, then are there going to be other venues on the F1 calendar which we should also treat with the same level of, okay, well, we're not happy about racing here either, and it could completely reform the way that we have an F1 calendar. I don't want to be over dramatic, but this is quite a significant moment in Formula One's history, what happens here. And even the drivers having these conversations in the first place, this is a big moment for Formula One. And yeah, that's why one of the reasons why we wanted to jump on here and have these conversations, because we both want to help, inform people with what's going on. If you're just tuning in now, then you can, head over to WTF1.com in another tab or something and have a read of what's going on, so we don't keep repeating ourselves. But yeah, this is a very big moment in Formula One. I think it's just really important to reiterate that. And we'll bring you all the updates as we get them, because we don't know when the drivers are going to be leaving that room. So,
but we do, as you mentioned earlier, but welcome everybody that has just joined, that we have our colleague, Scott Mitchell, who's over at the race, who is in Saudi Arabia, and we'll be getting the update as soon as we hear anything from him, and also keeping an eye on social media and the internet as a whole for any other bits of information whilst we wait for that. Yeah, it's a really difficult situation, and I'm surprised that we had the unanimous, yeah, we're fine, to go ahead first, and then we had this. It's almost as if these team principals have gone ahead and said, yeah, we're fine to race, that maybe the drivers weren't really listened to previously, and that's why they've had to take this stand. Which yeah, obviously, again, this is speculation, but you're just looking at what's going on and the clear the clear stand that the drivers have taken to be this long and this late into meetings. It's clearly escalated over the last few hours, from agreements and it's going to be okay to absolutely not. And whether that's needed a more senior driver to come forward and say this isn't right for this to happen, who knows? But clearly it's a big thing that the drivers are currently doing at the moment, which could, as you say, Katie, change the way Formula One operates and where they go and where we race. And, is there going to be a little bit more, I don't know what the word would be, a little bit more, it's late, it's like 11:10.
Yeah, that's cool, mate.
But
Yeah,
keeping a broader eye on what's going on in all of these issues in these countries, because it's not like this is a brand new thing that they've just figured out's happening. This has been a known issue. So, yeah, I think for Saudi at least, it's going to be, I would assume, very difficult to continue this agreement with Formula One. But cash is also king, as we know, and that's why it's taking this long, unfortunately, for everything to be resolved one way or another.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And yeah, like you say, I just think that the significance really needs to be emphasized on the fact that, it's 2 a.m. The drivers have been in these meetings for nearly 3 hours. Scott Mitchell, who we said is on the ground, the room that they're in, it's got glass windows, although they're slightly tinted, you can still see in and see, where people are. And apparently Danny Rick was stood on his feet for an hour. Like, that's gonna, where you are, I know they've just been driving F1 cars all day, so it might seem like quite easy work, but all of these drivers are really wanting to be present. I think it's fair to say with some drivers there is also maybe a little bit of education that maybe they're getting tonight, because previously I'm not expecting drivers to be complete PR machines, but we've heard some drivers on the grid when we were racing in Saudi last year, for example, their interviews were maybe not quite as sensitive maybe, and things were clipped and taken out of context and stuff. And there is a lot to learn about racing in Saudi and some of these other countries. And I think the other thing that is important to say is, obviously Saudi Arabia is a venue which a lot of F1 fans have got quite a lot of discomfort going to Saudi Arabia. And I think that's understandably so. I mean, listening into the press conferences today, there are questions being asked about the mass executions that have been happening within this month. So, there are lots of things that people aren't happy about racing in Saudi Arabia, let alone missile strikes happening in such close proximity to the circuit. But as we say, there are other venues on the calendar which also have some questionable things going on there. So, yes, this decision could well change the face of how F1 looks. I hope it does, just for the sake of having the drivers, obviously really passionate about this decision. And I really hope that they're listened to. And I am, regardless of what outcome happens here, because, Matt, we can sit here and talk about it, but we're out of control in making this decision. But I just want to say how proud I am of those drivers that have spent that time there tonight in an attempt to make the sport a better sport and a safer sport, maybe, in terms of where they're racing and such. I feel like I'm waffling a lot here, but
no. I mean, we are literally waiting.
We're literally waiting for drivers to leave a room, but
for some insight. But no. I mean, it's I echo your thoughts, and the fact that these drivers not only are standing up for what they believe is right, but probably giving the mechanics, everybody else within the team that potentially feel like they're not being heard, because of course they're there as well at the Saudi Grand Prix. It's not just the drivers that are driving around this track. So, it is their responsibility as the drivers, as the ones that get listened to the most, to represent not only themselves but the entire team. And I think that's what is happening right now. I would love to know what is going on that really needs this amount of discussion. Like, how much more do you need to talk about so that it's
I
gone
think
into
it's
2:15 in the morning.
Yeah, it's obviously we're not there, so it's so much of speculation, which can be a dangerous thing. I know that, but I can only assume that it's a set amount of drivers maybe don't want to race. Some do. Some are still on the fence. And yeah, coming to such a big decision, it is not a decision that should be taken lightly. But yeah, to get all the team principals back as well, like you say, Matt, it's not just a decision that 20 drivers are making. It's going to be a decision that more than the 20 drivers are going to have an influence in. But it is interesting to hear that the team principals unanimously agreed for it to go ahead. Toto Wolff was quoted by Sky to say that probably the circuit is the safest place in Saudi Arabia at the moment. So obviously you've got to understand that the team principals and those within Formula One are going to have more information than us. And we, us fans can sit here looking through our phones, scrolling for updates from journalists that are camped outside of this room. But there are a certain amount of individuals that have been given this information that we just don't have access to, and maybe that's why they've formed those decisions. But obviously from an outside perspective, it might seem like a rather unusual decision, but yes, we'll have to wait and see how things go. There's a few images circulating on social media, and XPB, which is our image provider at WTF1, have also been sharing some photos of drivers and F1 personalities going in and out of this room. But yeah, there are some amusing pictures going around of some drivers just look like they're really, well, not tired.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're absolutely knackered, to be honest with you.
It's true.
They've done
it's a serious thing.
A few hours of running, and they've been in this meeting room for quite a few hours. So yeah, I'm not. They are. I'm not. By the by, it's a small thing in the grand scheme of things. But of course, their bodies are trained to go to bed at particular times. Like, that is. Part of their routine as athletes. So I'm not surprised that they're knackered, but they're all there for the greater good and to try and get to the bottom of what's the best outcome for everybody. But as you say, it appears that they're not coming to any sort of agreement just yet. Seeing some pictures, Alex Albon looking pretty miffed, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm wondering once again, I feel like it's important to have a sort of disclaimer, because we are just two fans that thought we would come onto YouTube, talk with other fans about what's going on, because it is going to be probably quite a significant moment in this sort of generation of Formula One. But I wonder if there are a select amount of drivers that are unhappy with racing, and it's decided that the majority want to race, and so that's what's going to happen. Whether the drivers will withdraw and just say, "Well, I'm not going to take part. I'm off."
Yeah, and I think that's when
situation that could happen.
And that's again a difficult situation, because it's all well and good them discussing it in this particular meeting, but when we do actually, if we do get to the stage where Formula One go, well, we're going ahead, but you don't have to race if you don't want to. And then if we genuinely get people boycotting, that's when, again, it's another really difficult situation. It's obviously, the simple equation to all of this is cancelling it. But Formula One, as we've mentioned, is a business, and they don't take decisions like this lightly. COVID, when it first broke, and Australia 2020, they didn't.
That was a decision. I was up all night waiting for that decision.
They waited till about an hour before free practice, I think it was, or something.
Fans arrived at the track.
Yeah, fans were at the track, and then they finally made the decision. No, everybody go home. But it wasn't until, as I say, the day of free practice that they made that decision. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made a very last minute decision for this as well. It's such a difficult one. It really is. Just keeping an eye on
Been getting updates from the race guys as well. So if we hear any more, then I'll share that with you. But I mean, obviously, journalists on the ground as well, they've been there as long as everyone else, and phones are beginning to run low on battery, and etc. People just getting tired. It's been on their feet for all this time. So we'll feed you any updates as soon as we get it. But as far as I know at the moment, all 20 drivers are in this meeting room. 10 team reps. Binotto was thought not to be there at first, and then he returned. So it could well be that he left the track and came back. One of my close friends, Claire Cottingham, she's a journalist on the ground. She actually went to her hotel at 11:30 this evening, got some rest and had a little, power nap, and is now heading back to the circuit at 2 a.m. Just so she could have got a little bit of rest before this announcement came through. But yeah, 20 drivers, 10 team reps, and yeah, as far as I understand, people like Ross Brawn, who's obviously the managing director of Formula One, Stefano Domenicali, Formula One CEO, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, who is the FIA president, he's also there. So yeah, getting as many people into this conversation as possible. And I hope it's a case of listening and understanding and respecting the concerns, and not just being like, a driver has a valid concern, and then being like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. Like, I hope that they actually listen to them and take it in and understand why they are, distressed or worried, things like that.
Apparently, Russell has left the hospitality building, the first driver to do so, according to what Tommy has just sent me.
Okay. So yeah, apparently updates from the race, who are obviously down there. So Andrew Seidel had gone back to the F1 hospitality room to rejoin the drivers. And then, yeah, Russell has left the hospitality building. He is the first driver to do so. And then all the team bosses except Seidel are in the race tower. Seidel has been in conversation with the drivers since he came back in, but now most other drivers are coming out. So Russell, who is a GPDA director, so that's the Grand Prix Driver Association, he took over that role from Romain Grosjean, and I think Vettel is also one of the directors there, basically making sure that he helps the drivers with having a voice. He has gone to the race tower, presumably to talk to team bosses. So it seems like F1 drivers are slowly funneling out of this meeting room now. So whether they actually speak to any media, whether they give any indication of what's going on, or whether they wait until a decision and a statement has been made. But yeah, Jenny Gao saying 4 hours and 20 minutes. That's a long meeting. So gives you some indication of how long that meeting was going on for.
Yeah, and I think we actually missed this in the Slack as well. I don't think we mentioned about the fact that the team bosses left the meeting with the drivers and went to the main race building. And Scott's guess is that this could be to hold a formal vote to race or not. So, yeah, it was going to be nearly 4 hours in total that they were all together. So it seems like, yeah, that maybe they've concluded the meeting with the drivers and now they are heading to have this vote. And I've just asked the question, how does the vote work? Does it have to be unanimous to cancel, or how does this particular situation work? And the thinking is it's unprecedented, so we're not exactly sure how that's going to go down, which is no surprise, really. Just winging it, really, it seems, in a lot of ways.
One thing that I will state from the sporting regulations, because as people might not know, or they might know, I love a good thing from the sporting regulations. I believe it is that there has to be a minimum of 12 cars for a race to actually go ahead. So if more than, hold on, quick maths, 8 say that they don't want to take part, the race can't go ahead. But let me just clarify that statement, because there's a lot of things in that sporting regulations And let me see if
And I
I can remember
suppose there
that
are
correctly.
not. I suppose there's also not loopholes as such, but grey areas when it comes to
True.
Teams not being able to due to one reason or another. Whether it's more of a standing against something in particular, whether there's a different rule for that. It seems as though there is. I would be surprised if Formula One said yes, 10 cars can go and race on Sunday. I feel like, they probably wouldn't do that because it would look terrible for the sport, to be honest with you.
In the sporting regulations, Article 5.8 is the one that I was mentioning. So an event may be cancelled, so not definitely, may be cancelled if fewer than 12 cars are available for it. And then Article 5.7, which is somewhat relevant, but as we've said, this is kind of unprecedented territory, so it might be relevant, it might not. But it says an event which is cancelled with less than 3 months written notice to the FIA will not be considered for inclusion in the following year's championship unless the FIA judges the cancellation to have been due to force majeure, which obviously this could be completely different because it might be a case of contracts, it might be F1 cancelling the Grand Prix themselves, or it could be vice versa. So when it comes to things like contracts, it's extremely complicated. It's not just a case of like, oh, we're not going to race. Oh, okay,
it's not clear cut.
It
that doesn't surprise me. Hence, more grey areas. May this it may be cancelled. That in itself should tell you enough about how that's not clear cut. So the drivers have all left out the back, apparently, of their meeting, whilst George Russell and Seidel have gone to the race tower, or race control. So maybe we'll get some kind of insight soon. I'd imagine they'd probably want to hurry up this decision now at this stage of the early hours of the morning. It's nearly 2:30 in the morning in Saudi. Welcome everybody, by the way, if you have joined. Of course, an unprecedented situation, all of this, and we really do hope that Formula One takes the correct and necessary steps to ensure the safety of everybody involved in this event. We are giving you as many updates as we possibly can, as and when they come in. So we do appreciate you coming on to this live update stream, and we'll be here for probably as long as we get an answer, even if they do just end up postponing, which I don't think they're going to do. This isn't an Australia COVID situation or whatever. I think this is an answer that needs to be done tonight, in my opinion. Whether that will be the case, I don't know. But it feels to me as though this is very much something that has to be resolved before tomorrow, even though it is technically tomorrow now in Saudi.
Yeah, this is where it gets complicated. But no, for people just tuning in, there's been questions over this weekend's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix as a result of a military attack which happened at an Aramco oil refinery around 6 miles from the track, which happened during FP1, which was on Friday morning for us, Friday afternoon for us in the UK. So probably Friday evening for them in Jeddah. And yes, it's going to be an unusual situation, and drivers and team principals have been making decisions. The team principals and Formula One said that the race could go ahead, and the team principals unanimously agreed on that. However, it's the drivers which are clearly quite unhappy with that decision, and they have been in many a meeting this evening to discuss what they would like to do. But obviously, as we can't be in the room with them and hear the conversations they're having, a lot of it is merely speculation at the moment. But yes, it's a very unusual set of circumstances, and we will stay with you until we get some kind of updates. I'm going to try and see if we can expect a press conference. I don't know. We might have one possibly maybe tomorrow. I don't think we're going to get one tonight because it will now be 2:30 in the morning over in Jeddah. But it could well just be a case of a statement made this evening for us in the UK or wherever you may be. It'll be a very early morning for them in Jeddah, or whether it is a case of we'll get something perhaps before FP3 or something tomorrow morning. But it's just a great shame, really, this whole situation. And I mean, motorsport is not a stranger to Saudi Arabia, obviously. With Formula One, that deal was done, and we had our first race in Saudi at the end of last year, which, all things considered, was an exciting Grand Prix. The circuit itself, a lot of drivers really like, with it's the fastest street circuit on the calendar, second fastest on the overall F1 calendar. It is a dangerous track, there's no denying that, but it gives the drivers a lot of thrill and excitement racing it. But aside from Formula One, we have had Formula E there for the last few seasons. That saw the season opener there, and that provides normally good racing. We've got Extreme E, who have also gone to Saudi Arabia. We have different types of rallying happening over there. So I assume that just because Formula One is a bit more high profile than the others, that maybe this is why it has been targeted in the way that it has. But yeah, the most important thing here is obviously that everybody is safe and feels comfortable in being in Jeddah at the Corniche circuit. But yes, it's just, the whole thing is just really rather a sad situation to be in, I think.
It certainly is. It's not something that we want our beloved Formula One to be getting involved with. All of this is, it's a crazy situation, and one which I think there's going to be a lot of learnings from this particular incident that's gone on, because clearly they don't really know what they should do. They wouldn't have taken this long if they did, if there was a proper procedure in place for things like this going on. I know it doesn't happen that often, but if you're going to go to these controversial countries where this happens, then you have to be prepared for all circumstances. But we are still waiting for that decision to happen and to get the information. I've seen a picture of Max Verstappen leaving the track. It seems I don't think that's him leaving. Full stop. But it's a difficult situation. But I think the drivers have clearly put their stance forward. They've said exactly what they want to do, whether that's stay or not stay. And now it's for the team bosses, for George Russell, part of the head of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, and the F1 bosses to make the decision. As I say, my gut feeling is we're not going to be waiting till tomorrow. I don't think they can, especially when it's an issue of safety. So we will wait and see.
More updates with the situation going on. So yeah, Chris Medland is another person who is on the ground. He has just said, Philip Duncan, who is another journalist, apparently said latest from Horner in the paddock, who said will be racing. But whether that's will be as in F1 as a whole, whether that's Red Bull, whether that's just Horner being Christian Horner and saying things, I don't know. So I wouldn't take that as gospel. But yes.
Yeah, so Chris Medland's also said that he's hearing there's a stalemate and no clear outcome after 4 hours of meetings. So as it stands, Chris Medland's feeling is that we are still racing. So that is almost like a disappointed but not surprised kind of feeling for me personally, because clearly there's not been a unanimous decision as to what they want to do. But we will see the ones that are genuinely really against it, we will probably see them not race, in my opinion, if there is this split decision. And some feel very strongly about not racing. I think that may well be the route they go down. Then what do you do? What do you do as a team if one of your drivers doesn't want to race but the other one does? Do you really pull the whole entry? What do you do? So we wait to see more.
Yeah. It's the more you think about it and the more layers that it's got to it. It's not just a case of driver X doesn't want to race. Okay, that's fine. It's going to have no lasting implications. They'll just miss one race and it'll be done with. Like, whatever is decided with this Grand Prix will, I think, not only obviously shape the way that the championship could look if we have some drivers that are taking part, some don't, but also how, as we mentioned at the start of this, how the future of the F1 like calendar and sponsorship deals could go ahead. You know, if F1 wanted to do a deal with another Saudi company, they might say, okay, well, we could do a deal, but you know, these drivers aren't going to be happy about it because they boycotted the race in 2022. So it's going to be, there's going to be so many layers to whatever decision is made here. And like you said, Matt, it could be that we see some drivers that clearly feel so strongly about this. I'm not going to speculate about specific drivers at all because that's just a daft thing to do. But, you know, there may be a handful of drivers that are really uncomfortable with it. And yeah, it could be a case if they get on a plane tonight and leave and are not there tomorrow. We saw, obviously, for a very different set of circumstances with COVID. But, you know, when that was all being worked out as to what was going on there was talk of the likes of Hamilton and Vettel both getting on a plane and they weren't going to be there the next day, regardless if there was any racing. Obviously, this is a very different set of circumstances. That was for the start of a virus that we knew very little about. And so that was more probably of medical concern. But yeah, it could well be that we get to the circuit tomorrow, or not us personally, but you know, Formula One arrives at the circuit tomorrow and we're missing a handful of drivers. Or it could be that all the drivers turn up because they don't want to miss out on championship points, because as crazy as it may sound, you know, some drivers might feel unsafe being in this situation, but F1 drivers are made of a different gravy. You know, they have a different mentality to you or I, or probably most of us who are on this YouTube live at the moment. You know, Bottas was talking earlier about racing, and he essentially said, you know, I haven't really got much of an influence on where we race. I get given a calendar. We go to the Grand Prix. I get in my car. I do my job, and I try to get as many points as I can. And yeah, it could well be that some of these drivers think, okay, it's not ideal, but I want points. Points mean prizes, and they'll just have tunnel vision and think, I'm just gonna block out everything that's been going on outside, just focus on the racing, get my head down, get out of here, and then close that chapter. So it's going to be interesting to see the two different types of approaches. Well, I won't narrow it down to just, you know, you will race, you won't race. There might be some people on the fence or have different views of it, but that's pretty much what it comes down to, is either a driver will probably not be too happy, but will be happy enough to race, and those that are really that repulsed by the idea that they decide to boycott. But I mean, as I said earlier, it's just a very sorry state when we've got Formula One drivers wanting to boycott a race. I kind of hoped that we would never be in that position again, because as we mentioned before, with the, I think it's 1982 South African Grand Prix boycott.
84, wasn't it?
84?
Kill Army, was it?
Yeah. Are you Googling it?
Yeah, I think it was 80. I don't know, maybe it was 82. Yes, it was 82. Sorry, yeah, 1982 South African Grand Prix.
But yeah, that was for very different reasons. That was to do with the super license point system.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, as we keep saying, unprecedented situation to be in.
Indeed. Yeah, we are, as you've probably seen, everybody still waiting. Yeah, you crack on. We've done enough filling and waffling from the testing watch alongs that we did. But again, you know, we are just trying to get as much information as we can for you, everybody. Have we seen anything on Slack? Okay, so Yeah, it just does seem like it's very much case by case basis when it comes to crazy things in Formula One, and this is certainly one of those. If you're just joining, the drivers appear to all have kind of dispersed, barring George Russell, who has gone to the race control with Andreas Seidel and the rest of the team bosses and F1 themselves to hopefully come up with some kind of decision. George Russell, of course, the head of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, as he is the elected representative to help in this particular scenario. As I also mentioned, Verstappen was pictured leaving the track a little bit earlier, but nothing to really read from that because we don't know where he's going. So we can't really give you that any more information than that. But what we can tell you is that after 4 hours, it seems as though Formula One still couldn't come to a conclusion. F1 themselves, I mean, as a whole, as a group, the drivers, the teams, the stakeholders, everybody. But I think that sums up Formula One pretty well, in my opinion, doesn't it? Where we can't come to an agreement after 4 hours of discussions. But, you know, I also understand that it is an incredibly difficult and sensitive situation, which is going on at the moment. Yeah, and I guess as well, the drivers are the ones that have clearly taken a stand in this particular situation, because we did have news previously that we were going ahead, that it was a unanimous decision. But since then, the drivers, not now, but were pictured being in a meeting for hours on end, which just shows the severity of the situation and how some of them definitely do fear for their safety, not for them, just for themselves, but the teams, everybody.
Yeah, because as you say, these drivers, they're not just there to represent themselves, they're there to represent, the men and women on their team, whether that's in the media department, the mechanical side of things, engineering, marketing. You know, it's more than just them. They are a team. And yeah, it's a lot of pressure on their shoulders, but I'm seeing a lot of journalists who are on the ground. So McLaren CEO Zach Brown has said that they will be racing. Also seen people such as Carlos Sainz's manager also confirming that they're going to be racing. So qualifying Saturday and racing Sunday. But I also think it's important to wait until we hear of something official from Formula One or the drivers themselves. But yeah, it's appearing like we're going to be going racing, which I'm sure is probably not going to make some people very happy.
Yeah, so McLaren, Red Bull are the ones that we're hearing rumours of, saying that they're going to be racing. It's going to leave such a strange situation where we may well see some that say they're not going to race. But yeah, we will continue to wait and see if there's going to be an official announcement. I'd imagine there's going to be at least something from F1 Media to tell us what's going on, and because they're going to have to be soon. Because when does FP1, FP3 start?
14 hours, I think it's.
2 p.m. our time. Yeah, so there's still a bit of time.
Good thing, I guess the good thing of it being a night race
is that it's not as pressing as a 7 a.m. start or something.
No. But yeah, it's I think we should wait until we get an official statement from Formula One themselves, because I think it could be a case, as we say, like obviously we've heard from Red Bull, we've heard from Ferrari, both teams that Red Bull obviously had a bit of a shocker in Bahrain, but Ferrari certainly probably could be quite a competitive car around this track. And if both of their drivers are comfortable to race, then it's not up to us to say no, you shouldn't. They've got the information and they're making the decision there, but that could be just a small percentage of people. Sorry, Matt, what are you going to... That's
right. No, I was just going to say what Thomas said, which is a lot of drivers are leaving the track now. So it seems as though there's not going to be another sit-down chat with the drivers, at least not with all 20. Yes, it's a weird situation right now, and it does appear to be still lots of confusion, which I don't know if that highlights some serious,
right?
some serious flaws in the system of working these sorts of situations out. But I think it's all when it all comes down to money, doesn't it? At the end of the day, for Formula One as a business, as much as we all would love to just think, they would sack it off at any concern for the safety or whatever, but they won't and they can't, and
No.
That is the harsh reality, unfortunately, of this kind of business, because there's a huge amount of money that's on the line. And I don't feel sorry for them. I'm just saying what the reason is.
Like
these
F1
delays.
is a business. As much as it's a sport, it needs to be competitive. It also needs to make money for it to carry on. So I can see why deals are done. I mean, the other day, F1 signed a deal with a cruise ship company, and I was like, I'm sure they're probably offering a lot of money to be the official cruise supplier of Formula One or whatever the title is, but like, do you really need it? Probably not, but they're paying money, so go for it. But another thing to consider, this is what I mean when I say there are so many layers to this, is there are companies, Aramco being one that pops to mind. Obviously, that Aramco was the victim of this missile strike earlier, but Aramco are a sponsor of Aston Martin, and other teams will have Saudi Arabian sponsors on their car. So if their drivers are uncomfortable and don't want to race, then that's naturally not going to be too much of a good thing for the Saudi Arabian sponsors on, I don't know, say like a McLaren car or the Ferrari, or I'm just picking names out of hat here, the Williams. Like, I don't know if they have Saudi Arabian sponsors, but I'm sure that there are probably some on the grid. So it's just such a messy situation, and I would really just like a statement so we know what's going on for the sake of us, the fans. I mean, for us, it's coming up to midnight here in the UK, but there'll be other people in Europe that it's much later for, and obviously all the journalists that are in Jeddah at the moment, and it's going to be, I hope it's not going to be a long night, but yeah, thinking back to Australia, thinking, we'll definitely get an announcement in the next hour or so. And it was like that. I went to bed at sort of like 3 a.m. then, because I was like, I can't physically stay up much longer. I have a normal job, like I've got to be at work in the morning. I can't be staying up and doing an all-nighter. And when I woke up again in the morning at like 7, there was still no announcement. So,
good times. It's probably going to be the similar thing if they continue on with this.
Awesome.
I don't know. It's.
Why is my laptop?
It seems as though we are waiting for official confirmation, but it does seem as though at least some of the teams have committed to racing both tomorrow and Sunday. Whether there's things within there where it's like, well, if it gets this bad, we'll stop. I don't know. I'm sure they've discussed all eventual possibilities, because it's a weird situation for them all to be in, and I apologise that we can't give you more information than what we're currently giving you, but we are very much giving you everything that we hear, and we will let you know as soon as we get information from somebody. Okay, so just hearing from the race, our colleagues over at the race, that the feeling in the paddock is now that the decision has swung and the race will go ahead. So,
wow,
that is
that's something.
I wonder what has swung it. I wonder if not getting that unanimous "we want to cancel" has meant that teams have feel forced to go ahead with it. I don't know. Maybe we'll get more quotes as the well, as the weekend goes on, it seems to be leaning towards that, where the weekend will be going on. But yeah, interesting that the decision has swung and the race will go ahead, is the feeling in the paddock at the moment.
Wow, this is very interesting. Also, I think it's good to highlight the poll that you
Okay,
put
and
up earlier,
ESPN have also tweeted 3 minutes ago, breaking news, the Saudi Arabian GP is still due to go ahead. I don't know if that's just going off of what Christian Horner said or whatever, but ESPN are literally a broadcaster, so I thought I'd worth mentioning. Sorry, Katie?
No, definitely worth mentioning. But we've got a poll in our video here. So 31,000, close to 32,000 of you have voted on that. 63% of you think that the race should be cancelled, and 37% think that the race should still go ahead. So I would say that's not a landslide. It has to be cancelled. So that's interesting to see what you guys are voting on. And if you're just tuning in and you haven't voted on that yet, be sure to have your say in that poll. But yeah, as you mentioned there, Matt, it does seem as if we could be racing. So the question is, who will be racing if we do go racing? Who's actually going to be there? Because as we've alluded to a few times on this, it might be that some drivers feel so strongly about it that even if it does go ahead, they don't want to be a part of it. So
yeah, interesting. This is
it is.
Yes, ever evolving. We will Tommy makes a good point that we may not even get an official confirmation, because what is there to officially confirm if it's still going ahead? And will they want to make any more or any bigger of a, or put any of this, into more people's feeds? I don't know. But we know that Formula One want to protect their brand at all costs. So I wonder if there will be any sort of official statement. And that is a very good point, Tommy. So, we are expecting for it to kind of maybe almost fizzle out now at this stage. Because if the race is going ahead, we're probably not going to get some drivers, unless the drivers are literally like, I want to get out of Saudi Arabia, I'm leaving right now. I don't think we're going to get those ones that are like, you know what, I'm not racing, I don't feel comfortable, until probably tomorrow, if it is going to happen. It might be a sleep on it, well, how you feel in the morning. It might be that case because it's nearly 3 a.m. in Saudi now.
Yeah.
So,
very true.
As I say, this is hypothetical. We are having to work on the very limited information that we're being given. But let's see what people are saying in the chat, actually. Matt ASMR. Look, this is what happens when Matt live streams at nearly midnight. I'm just here.
It's a very late stream.
Low energy, late night stream.
Yeah.
Postpone, not cancel, says Eduardo.
Where would we put it, though? Where is it going to go?
Logan Andrews, bye, can't stand you, smiley face. Oh, have a lovely evening, Logan.
Take care, sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite.
Oh, dear. Matt is a tired boy. No, look, I was just chilling on the sofa, not realising any of this stuff going on. And Katie was like, have you seen what's going on? Should we let everybody know what's going on? I was like, I would like to know as well, actually.
I was trying to watch Interstellar this evening. My brother's been going on about watching it for ages, and it was very good. But Christopher Nolan films can be difficult to understand at the best of times. Yeah. And then when I was on my phone, like constantly refreshing social or Slack or whatever it is, and I'd look up and I'd be like, what's going on? Where have they come from? Who's this? And he's like, just living watch. I was like, I can't. I need to focus on the F1.
It's F1.
So after
F1
that finished over,
first.
I was like, yeah, we need to.
So Andrew Benson tweeted 12 minutes ago, I'm hearing that as of now, the drivers have decided to race in Saudi Arabia this weekend after 4 hours of meeting. They were given extra information, exactly what is unclear at this stage, before coming to that conclusion. But there have been serious misgivings among them as a group before getting to this point. whatever that particularly means. Some disagreements then, which is no surprise and probably what we all expected.
Yeah. Sophie, who, if you are part of Team WTF1, you will know all about Sophie, has just said, I've just seen your live streaming, like pretty much saying, what?
You do it. We've got no life.
Yeah. Can you tell I don't have a social life? That's what being an F1 fan does to you.
Yeah. I'd like to apologise to Soph, my girlfriend. We were watching Ozark, which we'd just started watching on Netflix.
Is that good?
And it's all right, actually. I'm into into the second episode, and then I was like, I'm going to have to go now. So I'm sorry, Soph. Big love. We will pick this up once again. I promise. We will pick up Ozark once again.
I've seen her tweeting, so she's still awake.
She's keeping it.
She's keeping on the sofa or anything.
She did say I might go to sleep. I was like, I can see you tweeting. I can.
Yeah.
Speaking of tweeting, Twitter is one of our big ports of information at the moment. But I am kind of the opinion now that we're not going to hear a huge amount. I don't know if you're of the same kind of feeling, Katie, but it does seem to be fizzling out slightly.
Very much so. From the sounds of it, most people have left the circuit. And as you said, with Australia, it's probably likely that we'll hear something early in the morning if we do. Obviously, I'm not sure what let me pull up the official timetable, because there might be some other racing going on. It's not just F1 that could be affected here, because I very much doubt if F1 say we're not going ahead, F2 aren't going to be like, oh, well, we'll go ahead and be fine. I assume just everything would be canned. So local time, what day is it today? Today's Friday. The Porsche Sprint Cup Challenge Middle East, the quali session for that starts at 13:50 local time. So that's 10:50 our time. So the good news is for those in Jeddah that they've got a whole morning to come to a decision and make a statement. So I think it's probably quite likely, because it's so late now, that we'll see a statement in a couple of hours from now. But yeah, whether it will be a statement that goes into more detail as to why they feel so strongly that they can host this and everything will be safe and fine and like nothing is different, or whether it will just be a blank statement of we will be racing, full stop.
We will be racing, full stop. Nothing to see here.
No further questions.
That's it. Moving swiftly on. It does seem to be that way, if I'm being completely honest with you. We'll probably hang around for a few more minutes, maybe make it into technically tomorrow, our local time, which is in 3 minutes' time, just to see if we hear anything else. But it certainly does. Is that fire still blazing on, by the way? Do we know?
I would assume that it's been put out because it has been quite a few hours now. And also, I think it's important to confirm that there were no fatalities, which is obviously great to hear. Yeah. But yeah, a big...
It's a huge fire, wasn't it? It was absolutely enormous.
Yeah, it's not good at all. And could even be picked up in the back of some of the shots on TV. And even in the F2 qualifying. Apparently the F2 drivers weren't even informed as to what was going on. They were just sent on their merry way. Whether there's much truth to that, I don't actually know. I saw it on social media earlier though. But yes, what a day, Matt. What a day. I've been up since 8 a.m.
Well, 8 a.m. and you're like, let's do a live stream.
Well, but when you've got things like this, I was like, I can see little bits of information being drip fed and I want to feed it back to other fans that might be wanting to know the same.
I've also seen on Twitter from a F1 correspondent, Philip Duncan, who asked Toto Wolff for the latest, and he said that they will be racing as well. So
that sounds like a lot of people are saying the same thing.
As though we're going ahead, everybody, which is Okay, so apparently there's rumours as well that there's a press conference at midnight, GMT, which is in 1 minute's time.
I can't see that happening because I feel like the race would have given us a heads up for that.
Yeah, I think
if it's
so
in
too.
1 minute's time, I feel like that could be just chatter, but maybe it's worth checking with the race guys.
Is there any proposed press conference? I doubt it. I mean, I think it's 3 a.m.
Okay, the poor person that's got to do that. I think it will be.
No, there is no proposed press conference for anybody wondering.
Rubbish. Yeah, that's just a rumour. Somebody's 100% started and gone, yeah, this will do well.
Yeah. I think it was actually a tweet from a journalist, but maybe it was slightly confused.
It wasn't that fake Formula Races account, was it?
So team bosses and drivers leaving the circuit mostly refused to talk. There's no official word on anything from F1 or the FIA yet. So I think
that's a good point to say.
Yeah,
there's not much. If there's nobody in the paddock to ask, if they've all gone back to bed, then I very much doubt F1's just suddenly going to be like, let's put a statement out at 4:30 in the morning or something their time.
So what we probably can do then is say that we're sorry that we couldn't give you the flat out answer that we were hoping to bring you in this live update stream, but all the same, thank you for coming and joining. We will be doing a quali watch along tomorrow if qualifying is going ahead. So be sure to check that out tomorrow. And keep an eye on our social medias as well, at WTF1 Official, on Twitter especially. If we get any sort of breaking news, I'm sure there will be something that gets popped up on there. But it does seem as though we are very much racing and carrying on with FP3 as of tomorrow. But yeah, I imagine it's still a very fluid situation, as they like to call it, fluid, ever-changing, whatever. So it may well change again, but for now, the general consensus is that we're going racing. Whether that is the right decision or not, they've got more information. Yeah, they've got more information than we do, and it is open to opinion. But yeah, it's not a stream we expected to do. That's for sure. And I really do hope that the weekend is safe for absolutely everybody at the track, especially if we do go ahead. This is something that we don't want to be looking back on going, we should have done something differently here. So, yeah, my fingers are crossed for a safe weekend. Do you have anything else to add, Katie?
Not really, no. The guys at the race, which, as we've mentioned before, is our sister company, they actually have people on the ground who are still there now, 3:00 in the morning. They've been stood outside waiting for news all day. So if you do want to get any sort of up-to-the-minute updates, be sure to head over to their web URL address thing is the-race.com, I think, but you can also find them on socials at We Are The Race. And obviously WTF1 also has its own social media, which we'll be sharing updates on, and if you're not following us on social media but you're watching this, then you're in big trouble. So be sure to go and head over to WTF1 social media as well to get updates. But yeah, hope wherever you're watching from that you are either about to get some sleep yourself, like myself and Matt are, ready for tomorrow morning, another probably very busy day, or maybe you're just starting your day, and I hope you have a lovely day and enjoy it.
There's also been confirmation from Autosport that the Saudi Arabian GP remains on after the risk of an F1 driver boycott is headed off following over 4 hours of talks. So everybody seems to be reporting now that Saudi GP is still on. So I think that is a good way to round off this stream. So thank you, Katie, for your time. Thank you to everybody for tuning in, listening along, and engaging in the chat. Sorry, the chat has been moving quite a lot, and of course we've been keeping our eyes more on what's actually going on, but we will be doing Quali Watch Along tomorrow, so feel free to join us for that, where myself and Tommy will hopefully safely go head to head, and it'll be lovely, and it'll be a nice little 1v1 as we had in the first round. But of course, this stream has been very serious, and we hope that everybody is safe out there for the foreseeable, as we are apparently racing. So, we'll see you very soon. for another video, and goodbye.
Take care, everyone.